Welcome to the Medical Collective, your go-to podcast where medicine meets real life. I'm Dr. Keisha Davis, a pathologist, personal trainer, and your host. I will be joined by a vibrant team of doctors who are not just healthcare professionals, but artists, fitness enthusiasts, and advocates for change. Each episode, we dive deep into the world of medicine, from untold stories of the healthcare industry to the latest in medical advancements. We're here to bring your insights, answer your burning questions, and explore the art and science of healing. So let's get started and step into the world of the Medical Collective. Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. We are midway through a month that here is very hot, and that is summer in June in Texas. It's hot. But I love it hot because I grew up in the Midwest and I cannot complain at all. All I have to do is when it's really hot and I'm sweating, I go inside and then I think about the ice and snow and being able to not get around like I want to during that time. So that is a remedy for dealing with hot weather, should I say. But I wanted to talk about, as a pathologist, Dr. Keisha Davis, pathologist, is about what is in your summer salad. For those that are eating summer salads, whether they're vegetable, lettuce-based, what have you, but to be honest, what is in your summer food and what we need to be looking for. I can tell you that I remember quite a few family barbecues, picnics, where I've refrained from eating something or eat something and I end up getting sick from that. And we always hear about the potato salad, right? So we will talk about all of that today on this episode. So I hope you're doing well. Sit back and relax, and we will talk about a few things that you should know about your summer food. The first one is about the potato salad. How many of you love a good potato salad? So I don't do dairy anymore. I stopped eating dairy quite a few years ago. And one of the reasons why was, for me, it was causing a lot of stomach upset, should I say. And some of that can be attributed to being lactose intolerant, what have you, but sometimes it can be attributed to the bugs, the microorganisms that live in said potato salad. Especially when I remember is we would have cookouts, right? And the food would be laid out at the beginning. It wasn't laid on ice, it wasn't refrigerated, and it would be out for hours, 6 hours, 8 hours of the food. So by the time you ate the food, it had been sitting out, and if there's bacteria on it, it's grown by then, right? And by the time you ingest it, you are very, very sick. And I just remember after eating it, when you're in the middle of having stomach pain, you're like, I'm never doing this again. I'm never doing this again. And then, of course, a couple months later, you have amnesia, right? You eat the food again. But I haven't really gone back from that. And really, whenever I see a potato salad, all I think about is stomach upset for me. So it took one time for me to say, I'm not eating that again. Some of the common, I think there's like a top 5, but there's many common bacteria and toxins that happen when you don't store food correctly, right? One of them you need to think about is salmonella. There's listeria. There's E. coli. There's staph. There's clostridium. There's norovirus that we hear about on the ship. So all of those are things you need to be looking out for, thinking about. But when you bring them all down and boil them down into one, if you do safety precautions, you can prevent a large number of them. You really, really, truly can. Norovirus, for instance, I want to quickly talk about, and that's a virus, not a bacteria, because it's happening on cruise ships now. I think we've heard many cruise ships that are having outbreaks of infection, and these things right here called hand washing and touching doors and surfaces and then touching your mouth is where it's happening. And it can cause, unfortunately, diarrhea. So please, 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 if you're on cruise ships, take that into account. I personally don't go on them, but a lot of people, if you do, I don't think you need to change what you love doing, but make sure you're doing the proper things to prevent it from happening. And to be honest, I have a friend that loves to cruise and they have not gotten sick yet. So they're doing something right. Salmonella is one. Usually salmonella you get from undercooked eggs. Another thing I don't consume at all, so I don't really worry about it. Also contaminated chicken. It can cause a very serious gastrointestinal illness, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Also listeria. The thing that people don't know about listeria is that it can survive cold environments. So deli meats, unpasteurized cheese, for those that do cheese, again, I'm not dairy. In prepackaged salads as well, you can get listeria. And that actually has been going around as well. I do follow FDA's recalls, and you can actually go onto the FDA site. Just Google FDA recalls, and you can be notified by email when there are updated lists or there's a recall in your area. So check that out for sure. So back to another what's in your summer salad. E. coli. E. coli. We always hear about E. coli, E. coli, E. coli. This is one of them that those of us that are dairy and plant-free, we're not immune to it. You know why? Because it can end up on that lettuce if it's not washed. Or imagine if someone did not wash their hands and is preparing your salad and then you ingest it, right? There's no way to combat it unless you are watching the salad be prepared. And we've even seen recalls where it's a prepackaged salads. So that's why my husband is big on this. And I used to roll my eyes because when I first met him, I'm not going to lie, when I would get a bag of like triple washed lettuce, I was like, why are you just not putting that in the bowl? He was like, oh no, I wash. That doesn't mean anything. And I see why now. He still washes the lettuce and then lets it dry out, right? Because you don't want a soggy salad. It's got to taste good. So he does make sure that he rinses the lettuce and then prepares the salad after drying it and tastes good. And I have never been sick off of his food. So that's to add a station to that. Another one is, just to go back to E. coli. I also remember, this was in college, I'll never forget the Jack in Box or case of E. coli. And there is a certain serotype of E. coli that can cause a hemolytic uremic syndrome. So it's a very toxic one, and a toxin is produced that can make you very, very sick and can even be fatal. So be careful with that. And it also can happen in meats and other foods as well. So staph is another one, Staphylococcus aureus. There is a staphylococcus that lives on your skin, and we will talk about it sometime. What is our microbiome? So our skin, our gut, you've heard of your gut microbiome. All these parts of your body have organisms that live there and keep everything what I call in homeostasis. So if you disrupt the microbiome, or if things that are in one side go somewhere else where they're not supposed to be, that's when you can get sick. So Staph aureus is foods that are left out at room temperature as well, too long, and some heat-resistant toxins can also happen, and you can get the nausea, vomiting, all of that, what have you. Another one is Clostridium. Now, I'm sure you've also heard of Clostridium botulism, which can cause the botulin toxin to be released and cause some nerve issues. But Clostridium perfringens happens in foods that are kept warm but not hot, common in like the buffet type settings. Depending on what bacteria you get, there's an onset of symptoms, right? You eat the food, right? Maybe you go to a buffet or party. 2 to 3 hours later, you're sick. Versus you go to a buffet party and maybe you go other places and you wake up later the next day sick. It just really depends on what you've had and when you had it. It can get hard. If you're going out to a fast food place and then you also eat at a friend's house, or you go somewhere else, it's hard to kind of link where it is unless somebody else gets sick and they were at the same place as you, then you can kind of figure out where you were. So kind of take those things into account as well when you're looking at what could have caused your sickness. Shigella too. Shigella can cause a bloody diarrhea. That's important. And the thing about Shigella is some of these, you can eat something. Have you ever eaten something and you didn't eat a lot of it, so you feel your stomach like you're about to get sick, but you don't get all the way sick. Shigella is one that it doesn't take a lot of the organism to get very sick. It causes just a little bit. So you could eat a little of something that had Shigella on it and you could get more sick than another food that you eat that has another organism on it. So Shigella can cause this sometimes bloody diarrhea, a fever, very bad cramping. It can be pretty horrendous, to be honest. The thing is that we're not always getting tested, so you don't know if you've had salmonella, Shigella, right? You're just guessing unless you find out later that this food was contaminated with that. That's something to take into account as well. Hepatitis A. So hepatitis B and C, different. But hepatitis A is actually a foodborne illness. It's an acute hepatitis, and that can also be something that is caused by the foods that you're eating that aren't processed correctly. So be on alert for that one too. That is hepatitis A. And these are all things. This should not scare us, okay? I don't want to scare you. I know a lot of friends that say they don't do cookouts, they don't do buffets, they don't do work functions because they don't know how people are preparing their food. And that is true. You do need to know who's preparing the food, but don't be afraid now to where you're not eating anything. Just make sure you know who's preparing it. I'm very actually discerning on who's preparing the food when I'm eating at buffets, or try to eat, not buffets, but at luncheons. And I try not to eat a lot of different things too. That way I can trace it back to what it may have been if I get sick. But I haven't actually from the buffets. From family functions, no, that's a different that's a different thing. Some of the things, and FDA has a good breakdown, as well as CDC, about food safety. And that will kind of be one of the things I'm going to talk about in just a minute, is how you can really stay food safety. Hello, listeners. We want to remind you that you can catch The Medical Collective on all your favorite podcast platforms. That includes Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. We're also on Libsyn, and you can find us on all social media platforms as The Medical Collective. Do you have thoughts or questions? Please don't hesitate to reach out. We love hearing from you. Now let's get back to the conversation. But I want to talk about what happens in the lab. So if you are sick to the point where they need to find out, they're going to tell you they need a sample, right? Now, hepatitis, you can do blood work, but for a lot of these, they're going to have to do what? A stool sample. Very, very important how you collect the stool. Also, if it's a contaminated food, maybe from a fast food place, and they're realizing that they're getting something that's causing an outbreak, then the food can also be tested as well. When we do a culture, we can do an actual culture. They also can do some PCR testing, and they can look for certain pathogens like norovirus or E. coli. C. diff, which I didn't talk about, Clostridium difficile, actually isn't a foodborne, isn't due to the foods necessary, but that as well can be tested in the stool. They can do what is called rapid diagnostic. So if it's an outbreak of such, we make sure we can do these things rapid. There's like a panel. It's really important too with public health that things are reported. So if you do go and maybe you have something that you trace back and you say, I did go to this restaurant, it's important, public health departments will report these instances so we can go back and trace and track, right? And then if you went there, you sometimes may hear on the news that there was an outbreak at a place, and you can go back and think, oh yes, I went there. So you can make sure that you are safe, and you tell other people that went there too. Some of the food safety things. Now, my husband is a good cook, I always say that, and he practices all of these. I am very, very cautious because I don't like meat, and especially raw meat. So please, 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 one of the most important things you can do is washing your hands and surfaces. And this is kind of funny, but there is a video. There is actually a TikTok group, and it's two individuals, and they like make these fancy drinks. They got long hair and their makeup and everything. But you notice in the middle of making their drinks, they're always cleaning the surfaces. It's kind of funny. They like spraying and cleaning the surfaces between it. And they're just like going from like doing fruit, cleaning, dicing up fruit and blending it and putting like these candies and stuff to making these fancy drinks. And they clean between each time they're doing it. But cleaning the surfaces, what I'm learning from that is to clean your surfaces, to wash your hands. It sounds so mundane. All of us know the alphabet. So you know what we can do? Every single time we're washing our hands, do the alphabet. At the beginning of the pandemic, this is where amnesia comes into play. At the beginning of the pandemic, everybody was washing those hands. I just got back from a trip, and I'm not lying. I was in a bathroom at the airport, and someone got out of the restroom and went straight out the door. Straight out the door. We cannot do that, because we end up handling some food, giving it to someone, giving it to our baby, and they can get sick. They can get sick off of that. So please wash your hands. Sing the alphabet. A, B, C, D. If you need to get into it, sometimes you got to make things fun, because I know it gets mundane, and that's when you start to cut corners. But wash those hands for at least 20 seconds. Please, please, please wash those surfaces like my husband does. He washes those surfaces while he's cleaning, especially working with raw foods. And you can't cross-contaminate. So if you have seafood over here, or tofu for your plant-based people, or you have meat, make sure you're keeping all of those separate. Don't start mixing things, especially if you are eating. I don't do raw sushi. I don't do any of that. But if you are doing that, be careful as well, right? Because now you have the chance of getting something because the food's not cooked. So always wash. Wash before, wash during, and wash after you're cooking that poultry, flour, eggs, all of that stuff. Wash the utensils, the cutting boards, all of those things that need to be washed. Fruits too. We think fruits and vegetables were good. Listen, if you have a banana or an apple and you're cutting it, like cutting slices for yourself or someone, wash the outside of it. I remember way back in the day, there was like this nice little commercial where they showed when you cut the apple, how the bacteria, and I love this from a pathology standpoint, you're cutting it and you're going down and all of the stuff, imagine, they put like dye on the outside, and as they cut it, all of the stuff on the outside went into the apple and they ate it. Or the orange, right? Something where you can eat the apple skin. But it was just showing that if you don't clean out the surfaces and you're cutting something, it's going straight into the food that you're eating. So that's another way to prevent this is wash, W-A-S, wash everything, separate them, all of that. So important. Also, for those that are meat eaters, let's cook those things to the right temperature. I think now, too, is a time where we need to be, especially with avian flu, that also could be in your summer salad, is that you are cooking things to the right temperature. Don't have the time to guess. And I think really, truly, we need to be safe. Especially with my kids growing up, I was very particular. No, I don't do steak, but if they're going to eat meat, medium rare, medium, no. It needs to be cooked well done. Just be very cautious on that. The FDA and CDC actually has a nice little chart with like the temperatures. It'll tell you about with fish, 145 degrees, ground meats, 160 degrees on those temperatures. So if you have those little thermometers you stick in there, make sure you're keeping to that. Please, please, please. Same thing if you're microwaving or air frying. We really love the air fryers, but that doesn't mean that the air fryer is cooking all the way through. So make sure your food is cooked all the way through, especially if you're taking something that's frozen or not all the way unthawed and then heating it up. You're going to have to do it longer. And sometimes it's hard to get in. I remember my husband had a piece of fish, and he cooks very, very well, but it didn't get cooked all the way through because it was from frozen. So be careful of that too, that you know if it's going from frozen, that you are checking to make sure it's the right temperature all the way through. Let's see what I can talk about. Food outbreaks. They're happening. We think they're happening more, but I do not believe they're happening more. I think that we are getting notified and they're more publicized than before. So it is actually good to stay in tune to the news, especially outbreaks. I think one thing that really gets people going is when they find out about an outbreak, especially the cruise ships. If it's something that's going to mess up your vacation and summer salads, or say you're the one having said event and there's an outbreak, that's the last thing you want to have happen. So stay abreast on these recalls, especially sometimes what happens is, say you get a meat that is part of a recall or an outbreak and you're serving it to people too. That actually happened at a celebrity at the beginning of last year at a celebrity shindig or a function, and a lot of people got sick from it. So that's the last thing you want to happen. So stay abreast too of the stuff you're buying and where you bought it from if there was an outbreak with it. For this summer, if you're getting a summer salad, make sure you're washing the lettuce, the fruits, everything, even plant-based. You can still get sick from it. Make sure you're keeping cold foods cold, warm foods warm. There's so many cute little things. I do social media sometimes, TikTok shop, and you can buy all kinds of neat little gadgets that can keep things warm and cold, and these amazing coolers. Make sure you also know if they're working the way they're supposed to, right? Because sometimes the warmers aren't warming or the coolers aren't cooling. So make sure they're walking right. Even your prepackaged stuff, make sure you have everything washed ahead of time. If you're taking it somewhere, going on a picnic, make sure you have utensils too for each food that you're serving so you're not mixing them. And food thermometers. They got these cute little food thermometers and things that you can use. So I think all of this is important because whether it's staph, whether it's E. coli, norovirus, hepatitis, at the end of the day, all of this can be prevented from food safety and washing these hands. So please, everybody, let's have a good summer salad. And if you have a great summer salad recipe, I'd love to hear it. If you have some suggestions on how we can stay safe with food safety so we don't have this list. And it's a list. If you actually go over to the FDA, they have a list of many more that I did not even mention in the onset. So one of them also too from we hear about from rice, Bacillus cereus. That can have an incubation or from after eating it to when you get symptoms of 10 to 16 hours. Another one I didn't even mention was Campylobacter. Yeah, this is another one that can cause a diarrhea, and that can be 2 to 3 days. So imagine you eat something, it doesn't mean within that day that you're going to get sick. Some of them have a longer time from ingestion to presentation as well. Many. Vibrio, I didn't talk about Vibrio. I did not talk about a couple of other ones. But at the end of the day, as I mentioned, it's all about food safety so that we can have a summer salad that's sizzling, not a summer salad that is causing everybody into the restroom. Nah, you want to be known for having good food, not for having food that makes you really very sick, okay? So everybody, stay tuned for the next episode. Make sure you let me know on social media about your favorite summer salad and maybe a time that it was not so sizzling that you happen to have an infection. I think we all learn from our mistakes and from our stories. So until next time, stay well and stay safe. Thank you for tuning in to the Medical Collective. We hope today's episode has left you with valuable insights and a new perspective on healthcare. Don't forget, follow us on social media for more updates and behind-the-scenes content. I'm Dr. Keisha Davis, and it's been a pleasure to share this time with you. Stay healthy, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next episode, where medicine continues to meet real life. Please note that the content provided in the Medical Collective podcast, including text, graphics, images, and other material, is for informational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely those of the individual authors and guests and do not represent those of the medical collective, its staff, and any affiliated entities. The appearance of content on the podcast does not imply an endorsement. Neither the host, Dr. Keisha Davis, the co-host, or any guest of the podcast bear responsibility for the accuracy of the content provided or the use of information received through the podcast. Reliance on any information provided by the Medical Collective podcast, its employees, writers, or guests is solely at your own risk.